Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is episode 3. I'm Megan from Mega Goes Global,
And Jared Stover from Rover Stover.
and this is Temporary Locals. On this podcast, we explore the world and its stories, just like locals, even if it's only for a little while. And that just means everything from travel stories and hidden gems to ancient history, true crime, and all the weird stuff that we stumble along across the way. So, this week we have an exciting episode for you. We're going to dive into Jared's trip from Thailand. And I'm actually really excited to do this one because I've heard like stories from this trip in bits and pieces because this is actually a trip that Jared took before we met. So I don't know everything that you did and, you know, all the local stories of like exploring the towns and stuff. So I'm really excited to dive into this and hear about your trip.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. You're a great host.
You're a host too.
I know. Um, all right, yeah, so we'll just kind of jump into it.
Well, first question
Mhm.
is when did you go?
Yeah, so this would have been the end of 2018. I actually went right around my birthday. It wasn't necessarily a birthday trip, but that's when we happened to go. So I was in Thailand for my birthday.
You celebrated your birthday in Thailand?
I actually celebrated my birthday the exact time I was born, which is 5:20 in the morning. And I know this because my mom, when I'm in the States at least, calls me at 5:20 in the morning or texts me to say happy birthday at 5:20 a.m. every year. And so at 5:20 in the morning, I guess local time, I was in a plane flying over the North Pole. So I turned 30. I think I turned 30 that year. I was in a plane directly over the North Pole.
Wow, that's cool. What could you see? Like, was it
No,
daytime or it was night?
it was
Oh, it
night,
was
and
nighttime.
yeah, no, and you think like modern planes, climate control, and all that. I'll tell you what, when we were flying over the North Pole, it was cold. It was freezing on the plane,
Yeah.
and so, um, but we were flying China Air or Air China, and they gave us blankets and pillows. It's probably one of the nicest flights I've ever been on. They fed us so many times, like 3 full meals, and then just kept bringing us snacks. And it was just a really nice airline, and but it was such a long flight that it was the longest flight I had ever been on up until that point. Um, and that kind of gets into the whole point of us going. So I had gone to Europe the year before that, and the girl I was dating at the time, we had just met, and so she didn't get to go on that trip. And so when I came back, I pretty much said, you pick a place anywhere you want to go and we'll go on a trip ourselves, just me and you. And so um, she picked Thailand. That's what she wanted to do. And her main focus for going to Thailand was to go to an elephant sanctuary. That was the main thing that she wanted to do. And so I said, okay, I didn't really have any feelings about Thailand at the time. I was kind of indifferent.
Oh, see that I didn't. That's interesting. I didn't know that it wasn't even your choice. Cause
No, yeah, that was Lindsay's. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
she picked Thailand. And anybody that's like in the travel community per se, like knows that like Thailand's a big time destination. A lot of backpackers go to Thailand. It's like a pretty big spot for travelers. But at the time, it wasn't even really on my radar.
yeah. Which is funny that you say that because there so many times I've heard you say like that's one of your like favorite trips.
Yeah, and that yeah, that's kind of the funny part is that it was kind of her decision. I didn't really. I mean, it sounded cool. Like Thailand sounded cool to me, and I
Yeah.
started looking it up, and I was like, oh, this looks like a cool place. But it wasn't like number one on my list or anything. But yeah, it ended up being probably my favorite place I've ever been, and just in general, the Southeast Asia is such a cool part of the world. So, um, yeah, so we flew out of Atlanta, which is a nightmare, as you know.
Hmm.
And a lot of people don't know that Atlanta is the largest and busiest airport in the world,
Yeah, that's crazy.
which is, yeah, you wouldn't think Atlanta, but yeah, Atlanta Airport is the has the most traffic in the world, or at least it did. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. Um,
Well, and for those that don't know, it also, from where we're at, adds 4 hours to your entire travel time. So, like, it's a 4 hour drive just to get to the airport and then however long your flights are.
right. Yeah, and that's why at times we'll like stay if we're flying out of Atlanta, we'll just go down the night before and stay in a hotel. But for a lot of those big flights, I mean, Atlanta is either the only airport around that will actually go there, or it's just way cheaper to fly out of Atlanta. So we went down to Atlanta, um, and got on our flight. And like I said, we flew over the North Pole. And again, at that time, I wasn't really super well traveled yet. And I had never flown around the world before. And so my understanding of flight was pretty basic. And I just assumed that the plane flies from point A to point B, like around the circumference of the earth. But they don't do that. They actually fly you up and over the earth. And so we flew from Atlanta up, we flew north, up and over the North Pole, and then came down into China.
Mm,
And I just, because, you can watch it on the screen,
yeah.
your route or whatever. And I remember I wasn't aware of that at the time. And I know a lot of people listening are probably like, well, yeah, of course. But
Yeah.
I didn't know that at the
I
time.
know. I can't even comprehend that.
Yeah.
Geography was never my strong suit.
Yeah. So I guess they do that so you're not flying over the ocean that far. I don't know. I don't know. But, um, because I mean, if you fly to like Europe or something, you fly directly over the ocean anyway. So I'm not sure why they do it that way. I guess it might be quicker.
Maybe it's easier to get lost
Yeah,
if you don't have any like land. I don't know.
yeah,
I don't know.
or it's the way
Any
that,
pilots out there want to let us know?
yeah, um, yeah. I never really like looked into it, but I just thought that was really interesting. And so we landed in Beijing in China to fly through China, and it was such a long flight. It was 11 or 12 hours from
Mm.
here to Beijing.
Did you sleep on it at all? Like, what'd you do for 11 hours on an airplane?
Um, yeah, we slept off and on, and like I said, they took really good care of us. But excuse me, once we got off the plane, we were so jet lagged. I've never been jet lagged on any other flight ever before, even flights that are have been that long.
What does that mean? Is it just like extreme exhaustion?
Yeah, well, I think that when you fly through that many time zones and you fly on the other side of the world, you're just you don't get great sleep. We were, even though they fed us really well, we were still very like just felt dehydrated and hungry. And it's just you're tired. I mean, we were up early, probably hadn't slept much. And yeah, I think flying long distances like that probably just takes a toll on your body.
Yeah.
And so when we landed in Beijing, we were both like, we were sick. And
Mm.
that's the only time I've ever felt like that, even since. I don't really ever suffer from jet lag, but that day I was when we landed, we were both in rough shape. So we had a long layover in China, but we had to go through the whole process of Chinese immigration and going through security, and that was a whole ordeal in itself. Um, when you land in China, it's not welcoming like a lot of other places, or at least it wasn't for me in my situation. I mean, I've been to other places where you land and you go through immigration, and they're like, "Hey, how's it going? Business or pleasure? Come on in, have a good time." It was a much different kind of vibe when we landed in China. It was very serious. Everybody was getting in lines. It felt like we were like in a prison. You have Chinese security guys with guns yelling at you in Chinese, which line to get in and blah blah blah, and you don't really know what they're saying, and it's stressful. And we had to go through. They did facial recognition, retina scans, um, and I remember them doing our fingerprints, which to me at the time seemed crazy, but I looked it up just to make sure I wasn't like misremembering this. And yeah, they actually do that. And I think other countries also do it if you're coming in as like a foreign traveler coming through their country. I think even the United States does this for people that aren't from the United States. But in China, it's just they're very strict. And anybody that knows really anything about the Chinese government is they're very um, I don't know, tyrannical, I guess you could say, and they're not always very welcoming to foreigners. And so it was a very stressful situation landing in China and going through all that and going through all those processes. But once once we got through that, and you're in the main airport area. I mean, the Beijing airport was pretty cool. There's a lot of different food and stuff, so we got food and everything right away just to make sure that we could like get some sustenance into ourselves because we had another, I think, 6 or 7 hour flight from Beijing down into Bangkok. And so we got on that flight. We had a long layover in the Beijing airport. We ended up sleeping on some benches, just whatever we could find. And we passed out for a while. So we got on our flight to Bangkok and we landed in Bangkok at the main airport. And it was like, they call Thailand the land of smiles. And like I said, it was just a completely different vibe from landing at the Beijing airport in China. It was once we landed in Bangkok, it was like very welcoming. Everybody was very nice. Everybody smiles there. Everybody's very kind. And
Like light at the end of the tunnel.
yeah. And so we went through the whole immigration process and security and all that and got our bags and whatever, everything you have to go through. And we didn't really have a plan. I mean, we didn't do any sort of tour around this trip or anything like that. I mean, it was just her and I. Neither of us had ever been this far away from home. I think this was her only time leaving the country. I don't think she had ever left the country before. And so for your first time
Wow.
traveling internationally, Bangkok is a undertaking. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a far flight, and I mean, Thailand in general is pretty easy to navigate for travelers, which is why a lot of people go there. It's very set up for like travelers and stuff, but it's a wild place and it's busy. And so, yeah, I mean, that's a big undertaking for your first time leaving the country. So, her and I land at Bangkok and we just kind of walked out of the airport and there's
Did you have like
taxis.
accommodations already?
Yeah, we booked the two places that we stayed in, yeah.
Okay.
Um we had that set up, and I guess if you want to consider the elephant sanctuary we ended up going to, which I'll talk about later, if you want to consider that like a tour or whatever, then I guess, but um we didn't have anybody at the airport picking us up is what I'm saying. And so we just kind of walked out of the airport, and very novice like travelers and just kind of looked for the first tuk tuk we could find because that's something that we really wanted to do was take a tuk tuk. That's something you have to do in Asia. So at that time, at least, they allowed tuk tuks to pick people up from the airport. I know certain places in Southeast Asia don't allow tuk tuks anymore. You
Oh,
can take,
really?
huh?
Oh, why?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it undermines or undercuts the taxi companies, and I mean, certain airports don't allow Uber. Uber's not allowed to pick you up at certain airports. They
Yeah.
don't. They have a deal with the local taxi companies and stuff. So, um, but at this time, you were allowed to take a tuk tuk, and so we got in the tuk tuk, and that first ride that we took from the airport to our place, I mean, it was crazy. I'd never been anywhere like that before.
And what is a tuk tuk for somebody who might not know what that even is? It's like a covered scooter.
Yeah, it's like a three-wheeled rickshaw, a little motorbike with like a rickshaw on the back that you get in, and it's covered. I mean, it's open on the sides, but it's covered. Um, if
Mm.
if you see a picture of it, you've seen pictures of them before. But they're the main mode of transportation over there, and you see why quickly, because aside from the tuk-tuks and the motorbikes, I mean, traffic in places like this in the world are is crazy. And so
Hmm.
everything flows really well, but it's very congested. And so the tuk-tuks are able to get around places quicker and kind of navigate the streets of a place like Bangkok a lot easier than a regular car. So the tuk-tuk took us from the airport to our hotel. And yeah, that drive, like I said, I had never been anywhere like that before. I mean, Bangkok is a massive city. And at that time, it was the largest city I had ever been to. And I've been to New York City and, other big cities. And Bangkok is just massive. And so, and at night, I mean, there's just all the neon lights and just, you can picture Bangkok at night. It's a wild place. And so we finally get to our hotel and we decided for this trip that we wanted to stay on a particular road. It's a street in Bangkok, and it's called Khao San Road. And Khao San Road is famous for being like the backpacker place. Like that's the spot where travelers go, and they call it Backpacker Paradise. And so it's a really lively street. There's a lot of bars and clubs and food carts and street performers, and it's a really happening place, I guess, for travelers. So that's where we wanted to stay. So we got a ride to Khaosan Road, and we did what I do and what we do on a lot of trips is we kind of dropped our bags and headed out for the night and explored Khaosan Road. And I think that first night we stayed pretty close. We just stayed on Khaosan Road. I don't think we really ventured too far off that first night. But there's so much to see. I mean, you could spend years in a place like Bangkok and never see half the stuff. I mean, it's just there's so much going on there. And but to a foreigner, it all of it kind of looks the same, so it's easy to also get lost. And I also want to mention that at this time, back in 2018, I didn't even have a cell phone at this time. I was like straight up off the grid, like no cell phone. Uh, Lindsay, who I was with, had a cell phone, but like I didn't even have a cell phone. So we're trying to navigate Southeast Asia. I don't even have a cell phone, and but yeah, we just explored around that area that first night, kind of got our feel for Bangkok nightlife, and yeah, it's an exciting place, and so yeah, so that was our first kind of experience getting to Thailand and our first night in Bangkok.
What a long travel day. How long was the flight from Beijing to Bangkok?
I think it was 6 or 7 hours.
So, what, 4 hour drive to Atlanta,
Uh
and
huh.
then 11, 12 hour flight to China,
Hmm.
and then another 6 hours.
Well, and layovers in between there, and it's a full like almost 24 hours, if not more, of travel.
Yeah,
And even if you look up flights now, especially with how flights are kind of designed now, it's like to try to fly to somewhere in Southeast Asia, it's like 2 days.
yeah.
It's like 2 days of travel. And so, and the more you spend, obviously, maybe you can cut that down a bit, but regardless, like you may have more than one stop, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen different routes like that. But yeah, so that next morning, we woke up and we decided that we wanted to hit Bangkok early and we wanted to like see some of the temples. That was something that I was really interested in, the history and stuff. So we just kind of walked around and looked for. We got a map from the place that we were staying. It had different restaurants on it, and different things to do. And it was a map of the general area, and in our area were multiple temples to go see. So we grabbed a map from the place we were staying, and we kind of planned out a route of the different temples we wanted to go to, and we just started walking.
Talk about winging it.
Yeah, and but we wanted to get another tuk tuk ride. It's cool to do and it's fun. I really enjoyed it. I mean, you
Yeah.
remember from like when we were in Cusco, like we
Yeah.
like
Some
some
of
of
our
the
favorite times were just like getting a taxi and like I don't know, communicating with the taxi driver and like
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, something as simple as like getting a taxi is fun in another country,
Yeah.
you know. And so we were just kind of walking around, and the tuk-tuk drivers will just like all hang out on the corner and just kind of wait for people to walk by and like, try to get them to go with them and, offer rides and stuff. And so we were walking around and we walked up to this one corner and there was a group of tuk-tuk drivers standing there. And I remember the one guy had a bunch of tattoos and like they were kind of like poorly done. They looked like prison tats, And I remember he saw me and he saw my tattoos and he started like asking me questions and trying to talk to me about tattoos. And I remember at one point he like lifted his shirt up just like to a complete stranger and showed me like the tattoos all over his body. And and I think Lindsay mentioned like, yeah, we're looking for a ride. We want to go to these particular temples and stuff. And so we started getting offers from these different drivers of like what they want to be paid to take them there, and it's always a low price. I mean, even to this day, Thailand is the cheapest place I've ever been, and Southeast Asia in general is pretty much the cheapest place you could travel to. So we're talking like a few dollars,
Mhm.
and they use baht over there. That's the name of their currency, and so it was like a few dollars for a ride. And one of the tuk tuk drivers, but we didn't have a lot of money at the time. We were just like dirty backpackers, and so we were trying to save money. And one of the tuk tuk drivers was like, "Oh, you don't want to go with them, for that amount. Like, I'll take you for half the price." And he was like a middle aged gentleman. And so I just want to say that before we had gone on this trip at all, we had looked up and heard about different scams that people try to pull in Thailand and in other places in the world, but in particularly Thailand, the different scams that they try to pull on you. And so I'm a big believer in if something is too good to be true, then it's probably not. And when this guy said that he'll do it for half the price, which was the regular price was already very low, my first thought was like, uh-huh, sure, But Lindsay, who is a little more naive, I guess, than me, and I mean at the time I wasn't very, I wasn't like the most well-traveled person yet either, but I'd like to think I have a little bit of like street smarts, I guess. But she was like, "Oh, come on, we got to go. This is a good deal. We can't pass it up. Whatever." He said he'd do it for half the price, whatever. So I was like, "Okay, whatever." So I also think like, "Hey, whatever. It's a story. So we get in this guy's tuk tuk, and he takes us to the first temple, and it's nice, but it's not like one of the more impressive ones. But it was the first one on the route, and so he parks the tuk tuk, and we get out and we go into the temple, and we're in there just kind of admiring. They have a shrine in there and an altar, and it's you have to take your shoes off to go in, and you have to cover your knees and cover your shoulders. It's very conservative. Um, and at some of these temples, if you don't have the proper dress, they actually will provide you with like pants and stuff.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So you want to be respectful when you go to places like this. And so we go into this temple, and we're just kind of standing there admiring, the architecture and stuff and the history. And we see a guy off to the side, and this guy's like dressed in a nice suit, and we start talking to him, and he said he worked in Singapore for Microsoft. He actually worked for Microsoft, and he was dressed really nice and everything, and he said about how he got his suit from a tailor. And we thought, oh, that's interesting, because you can get suits over there. You can get like Armani suits for like super cheap, you know
Yeah.
like a tenth of the cost here. And so a lot of people, they go to places like that, they'll get, name brand stuff or what they at least think is name brand stuff for really cheap. And so we talked to that guy for a little while, and then we ended up leaving, and we went out to our driver and got in so he could take us to the next temple. So we're driving around. We think that we're going to this next temple. Well, all of a sudden we pull up on this street and we kind of look around and we don't see any temple.
Mm.
And we're kind of in the middle of like, the city. Like there's just shops and all kinds of, stuff. And we notice that we're parked in front of a tailor.
Oh.
And we kind of are sitting there and we kind of ask the guy like, what are we doing here? Where are we, And he kind of motions for us. He didn't speak, very good English at all, but he kind of motioned to us to like go inside of this tailor. And we're like, no, we don't want to go in the tailor. Like we wanted to go to this. We're paying you to take us to these temples. And he's like, no, no, just go, just go. And he's trying to like coax us to go into this tailor. And so we're sitting there arguing with this guy who speaks very little English. And we notice that the guys in the tailor in the store are like starting to come out. And so I remember Lindsay like stuck her head up front to where the guy was sitting and was just like, we're getting out now and we're not paying you. And so
Wow.
yeah, and so they're very pushy about it. And the tailor guys that were coming out, they looked serious and they were like, looked like they really wanted us to come in and buy a suit, which is funny to me because especially at that time to look at me, it's like, do I look like the kind of guy that even wears a suit? Like, you know. Um, so she's like, we're not paying you, and we're leaving now. And so we got out of the tuk tuk and we just started walking. And we look behind us, and the tuk tuk driver and the guys are coming out from the tailor store, and they're standing, on the sidewalk, kind of yelling at us. And so we just start walking. But we realized after we were walking for a bit that we have no idea where we are. And because he took us to a random tailor. We don't. So we were just kind of lost in Bangkok at this point. And so we were just walking around, and it was hot, and we didn't really know where to go. And that's when we ended up popping into this restaurant just to kind of get out of the heat and get some food or whatever. And as we're sitting in the restaurant, it's like an open, restaurant, and it opens up into the street. A guy walking by spotted us. I don't think this was a very touristy area. I think it was a more local side of town or whatever because we didn't really see any other travelers and they were pretty much all Thai people. So this guy spotted us inside the restaurant and came into the restaurant, and he had different stuff that he was selling, but one of the things he had was fried scorpions.
Mm.
And so I know I've told you about eating fried scorpions, but so that's when that happened.
Yeah.
So we tried fried scorpions and um, finished our meals and stuff, and then we headed out of that restaurant.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I could do it. Was it like crunchy? Ugh. I don't think I
Yeah,
can.
it was crunchy. It didn't really have like a flavor per se. It wasn't gross. It wasn't good though. It was one of those things that like I think people eat. I mean, they eat them there. Like locals eat that kind of stuff, but like I think travelers go there and eat those kind of things for the experience and for like the memory and like, oh, I can say I ate, fried scorpions or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I mean, they didn't like taste good or anything, but they weren't gross either. It was just like a little crunchy thing.
Yeah. I don't know if I could do it, honestly. I hear people say like, eating crickets and stuff. Oh, it's like popcorn. I don't know. I don't think I can do it.
Yeah.
Gives me like chills
Yeah.
thinking about it.
And they were little. I mean, they weren't like huge scorpions or anything, but we each had one, and they come on a stick. They put them on a little stick.
Scorpion on a stick.
Yep. And so after that, we ended up getting a different tuk tuk driver, one that apparently was honest, I guess.
So, wait, hold on. Go back because you said you were at the temple and there was a guy in a suit and you were talking to him. Do you think that like they took that as, oh, they're like interested in this, they think it's cool, they want to go, or you think it was like of like, you know, they were taking advantage of you?
Well, I think the tuk tuk driver was definitely taking advantage. That's part of the scam is that these tuk tuk drivers or taxis or whoever have deals with different businesses, whether it's a tailor or a massage parlor. And what they do is you go to them and you say, "Hey, I want to go here," and they might take you there, but on the way or after, they might take you to a massage parlor or a tailor, and they get a, I'm assuming, some sort of kickback from the
Mhm.
business for bringing people there. And it's funny you bring up the guy that we met in the temple, and the reason I brought that guy up is because we realized after the fact and in hindsight that that guy either it's either one of two situations. Either A, that guy also got scammed and went along with it and like bought a suit, you know,
Yeah.
or he could have even worked for the tailor themselves. And
Yeah.
because they'll have people hanging out at like touristy spots and at temples and stuff, and be like, oh, look at this nice suit I got, I only paid $100 for it or whatever. And
Yeah.
so we still to this day don't really know, but I think it's just a funny thing to think about that we happened to see that guy at the first temple who was wearing a nice Armani suit, and then immediately we get taken to a tailor and they're trying to force us to buy a Armani suit. So
Yeah.
but
It's like
so
my body is a temple, but that's not the one I'm trying to visit right now.
yeah. So we ended up going to the temples that we wanted to see that day. We kind of did that all in one day, at least in Bangkok. We went to all the major temples that you see pictures of and that everybody goes to. Um, we went to Wat Pho, which is the one that has it's impressive, but it's the one that has the biggest thing in it is the reclining Buddha statue, which is a giant gold plated statue of Buddha reclining. He's laying down. So we went and saw that, walked around the temple, and then we ended up getting on a boat because the Chao Phraya River runs right through Bangkok. And so in order to access different temples and different like attractions, you can actually get on a ferry and they'll take you up the river. And so we ended up doing that. And the last temple that we went to, and my favorite one, was Wat Arun. And Wat Arun is the giant white temple that sits right on the river. And I'm sure you've seen pictures of it. And some of my favorite pictures that I took from that trip, if not my favorite, were of this temple. It's over 300 feet tall, and it's intricately placed individual pieces of porcelain that make this temple.
Wow.
And it's massive, and it actually has stairs that you can climb up it, and you can climb like most of the way up. And yeah, it's one of the most incredible things I think I've ever seen. And we walked around it for hours, and I took so many pictures, and then we climbed up it, and there were other people up there, and yeah, it was a really awesome time. And Bangkok itself is just such an incredible city, and it's so big, and it's so easy to like get lost, but get lost in a good way. It's one of those places you can just walk around aimlessly and find stuff everywhere. And it's also a weird city in that like it's like a weird mixture of like old and new. It's a very modern city with like neon signs and like all these heavy traffic and all these like modern buildings and stuff, but it's like also not weird to see like a little Thai lady in like the straw hat with like some a stick with rice, or like
Yeah.
to see like an elephant or something, like it's just it's such a crazy place, and it's such a cool part of the world. And so to this day, I mean, Bangkok is really like my favorite city I've ever been to. So yeah, so that was pretty much our main big adventures in Bangkok. And like I said, we stayed on Khao San Road, so we hung out there a lot and met other travelers. And there's a lot of Europeans that go there, Australians. I mean, they have full on like Australian bars there that are like Aussie bars
Oh, cool.
where like Australians hang out. And people get wild in Bangkok. And I see videos a lot more now, like frequently, of like people over there acting a fool and stuff. And I don't know if it's just because more people are like recording that kind of stuff nowadays, or if people are just like, I don't know, but you need to be careful in different countries like that because like the Thai government, they don't play around. And you see the stories on on the news and stuff of like people getting caught up in like drugs and stuff over there, and they end up like going to prison for like many years, and even you can even get the death penalty there for like drug possession, which
Jeez.
is crazy. Which is really wild because it's such a crazy like party place too.
Yeah, when I think of Bangkok, I think of The Hangover.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's exactly right. And it's also kind of weird, like I was saying, like the kind of like dichotomy of the place is like also it's such like a crazy like party city, but also very like traditional and conservative with like the temples. Like you'll
Yeah,
have like a beautiful ancient like Thai temple where people go and worship, and then right down the street is like a bar with prostitutes just walking around.
yeah, what an interesting mix.
Yeah. And so um and I'm sure a lot of people have probably heard of like the ping pong shows that go on there. I mean, there's all kinds of like crazy stuff that goes on there, but you have people walking up and down the street trying to like recruit people to come to like what they call ping pong shows, and they make the noise of you know the ping pong noise.
That's
And
funny.
yeah, so for anybody that doesn't know, a ping pong show is, well, I don't really want to explain it on the podcast, but I don't really want to get into it. But what's funny is like one of the guys stopped us and he had a list for this establishment, and there was a whole list of different acts that the woman is going to do.
Wait, this whole time, I thought you were talking about like a ping pong tournament. No, okay, I'm picking up what you're putting down now.
Yeah, no, no, yeah, it's called a ping pong show,
Oh my
and
gosh.
it involves a woman
And
and a
ping
ping
pong
pong,
balls.
and
Yeah.
then you with a paddle. And um, but this guy had a list of all these different acts that the woman would do, like with her vagina,
Mm-hmm.
and they ranged from like shooting things out of it or like smoking thing, like whatever, like just all this different stuff on this list. And everything that like you could pick different things and they all cost something different. But what's funny is at the bottom of the list it just had the word sex, and like it was at the bottom of this list with all these other like really like specific other like acts that she would do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just saw the word sex and I was just like, what does that mean? And the guy just kind of looked at me and he was like, well, she has sex. And it was just kind of funny how it was just like so obvious at the
Yeah.
bottom of that list. And it was like, oh, okay, so if you pay enough, like you can literally just watch this girl have sex. So yeah, it's wild there.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, but we survived that and navigated Bangkok. And yeah, I think we spent like 5 or 6 days in Bangkok. We were there for like a week almost. And after Bangkok, and I've kind of said this before on a previous podcast, but Thailand is kind of the one of those places that you go to and you fly into the same place as most people, and then you kind of decide what route you want to take. And some people will go up north to the hills, and other people will go down south to the islands. And so we wanted to go to the islands. We wanted to go to the beaches, the Thai beaches. We've all seen the pictures and how beautiful the coast is there, and the islands are gorgeous. So, and that was also where the elephant sanctuary is that we wanted to visit. So we flew from Bangkok down to Phuket, which is, I guess you could say, like the main island down there. That's where that's where everything happens. And so, but the flight from Bangkok down to Phuket is by far, hands down, the most terrifying flight I've ever been on. And I'm not like a scared flyer. I love flying, but we flew on a airline called Thai Lion Air, and this flight, it was only like a couple hours, but this flight was just chaotic.
Was it like a small plane?
Um, it wasn't a giant plane. It wasn't like a puddle jumper or anything. It was like an actual plane, but it was, yeah, it was
Was it chaotic like turbulence or?
it was chaotic like everything. So the way I have described this flight and this airline before is it's like if anybody's ever seen Hotel Transylvania, the cartoon, the
Mm.
kids the kids
Yeah.
cartoon, that scene where they're on the Gremlin airline, you know that scene? Well, it's just chaotic. It was like turbulence, yeah, but like also just the plane was falling apart. The
Wait,
th-
what?
yeah, the plane was just falling apart. There was like duct tape on it and stuff. Like it was
Oh my
bad.
gosh.
The service was terrible. Like people were just it was just a wild flight. And yeah, and it was Thai Lion Air. And I'm not like shitting on their whole airline. I don't know if they're all like that, but that flight was just like I remember just landing and being like, "Oh my god, like that was rough." Like the plane was old and falling apart and it was just stuff was flying everywhere. It was just it was crazy. So, we get to Phuket and the airport there at least at that time was like I mean, you land on a runway and you're like in the jungle, it looks like. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't even look like a major airport or anything. Um, so in Phuket, we ended up staying in a hostel and we get to the hostel. I don't even remember how we got there. We probably took tuk tuk again. But we get to our hostel and I remember that there was a group of like young Americans in front of us that were also checking in at the desk. And there were like these like younger kids, maybe college age, I don't know, but they had these giant suitcases and there was like three or four girls and then like, you know, two or three guys or whatever. Maybe they were here on like spring break or something, I don't know. Well, this was like September, so I guess it wouldn't have been spring break, but you know, they were here on whatever, here to party, it seemed like.
Yeah.
And I just remember they had these giant, like big rolly suitcases, like the biggest ones you can get, you know, which makes sense because these girls probably like packed every outfit they owned and, you know,
Mhm.
those kind. And so I remember we were standing behind this group of kids checking into this hotel and the little Thai lady behind the desk that like spoke very little English. I remember when they were getting their like key cards or their keys or whatever, the girl was like, she's like, and where's the elevator? And the Thai lady was just like shaking her head, like, no elevator. There's no elevator here. Like,
Oh no.
and I just remember these kids just being so like disgusted that this place didn't have an elevator, and they were just like, "What do you mean there's no elevator?" Like, you know, and they were just like being rude, kind of. And so they step away and they go to the stairs that are off to the side. And Lindsay and I stepped up to the front desk, and we just myself, Lindsay, and the Thai lady behind the desk all watched these kids and these like little white girls try to drag these 300-pound suitcases up these stairs, like having a hard time, cursing the whole time. And the three of us just all looked at each other and laughed at them. And it was so funny.
That's funny. Like you, those moments like that where you like you don't speak the same language, but you understand what's going on, and like the
Yeah,
humor transcends language.
yeah, yeah. Like you look at each other and you all kind of get it. And
That was like, well, we'll get into it, I guess, when we do our Peru episode.
yeah, um, but yeah. So the lady behind the desk kind of looked at us and kind of rolled her eyes, and you know, because we're also Americans, we were like kind of embarrassed, like, well, we're not all like that, you know. And I remember she motioned, like she put her finger on her nose and kind of put her like nose up in the air, like kind of,
Oh, like stuck up.
yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
And we kind of laughed and everything. And so, yeah, we were at our hostel in Phuket, and
So you say hostel. I've never stayed in a hostel. Is that where you get your own room, right?
we had our own room. Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
have to. There's
But they
like
have areas
communal.
that's like shared. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. This was for a hostel. This was like a nicer hostel, I guess, but they obviously didn't have an elevator. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I've never been a big fan of like rolly suitcases for reasons like that because certain parts in the world are not, you know, I've seen people try to lug those things upstairs and through sand and down cobblestone and like just navigating airports with them. I prefer to have everything with me on my back. It's just so much easier to like get around, you know. And so, especially with a big group like that where you all have suitcases, trying to get into like a cab or a tuk
Yeah,
tuk or whatever, you
that's a
know?
little much. I mean, I prefer not to check a bag,
Right.
but I do like my little rolly suitcase.
Yeah.
It's like a carry-on size.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the little ones aren't bad. I like being able to go, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um so yeah, we were in Phuket and we were in an area that's called Patong, at Patong Beach. And in order to get to the beach, you have to go down uh, uh, a street called Bangla Road. And anybody that's ever been to Phuket or been to Patong knows about Bangla Road. And it was like I thought when we got to Bangkok and we saw like Khao San Road and some of the other like party areas, I thought like, wow, this is wild. When I got to Bangla Road and we started walking down that street, I was just blown away at how crazy this place was. Like I describe it as like the Thai version of Bourbon Street, but like times 1,000. Like it was just the craziest thing I've ever seen.
So was there anything like that in Bangkok, or this was its own thing?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like crazy stuff in Bangkok, a lot of bars and like, just there's prostitutes everywhere in this part of the world. So, but they were like particularly just, it was just a wild atmosphere on Bangla Road. And I mean, there's just people dancing on bars and people like stumbling out into the street and there's street performers and there's like it's just wild. It's just a lot of people and it's just all one big
Seems like
party.
a lot of movement,
Yeah.
fast.
And luckily I was there with like, or I guess maybe unluckily, depending on how you look at it, I was there with my girlfriend at the time, but like single guys like walking down the street like that, like the Thai prostitutes will come up and literally pull them off the street, like physically grab them and pull them off the street. Like,
Jeez.
yeah, it's wild. And there's a massage parlor every like literally like 10 right next to each other. And they're all like competing for business.
Uh,
And so these Thai girls in their like little skirts and stuff will literally come out into the street and like physically grab guys and stuff. So they don't really do that as much if like you're with somebody. Um, but yeah, so we finally get through Bangla Road, and once you kind of get through that street and through that road that's really intense, you get to Patong Beach, and it's like it's a pretty chill beach. It's really nice. There's still a lot going on, but the main thing I remember from being out at the beach, I remember sitting there and watching the paragliders.
no, that's so cool.
And the wild part about that is that the Thai guys that were like the ones that ran the business or whatever, the paraglide experts, they would actually go up into the air with the tourists that were strapped in, and they would jump, like I guess to help them land so they can land better or whatever, or they can control the parachute in the air or whatever. But these guys would jump on the backs of tourists and like hold on to the straps with no safety harness, no net, not connected in any way, just holding on. And they would go up, hundreds of feet in the air, however high paragliders go. And these dudes would just be up there in the air. And I just sat there and like watched this for like an hour, just like amazed at how crazy these guys were. Like just
Jeez.
imagine that.
Yeah. So, and wait, paragliding, that's the one where you're like, it's like a kind of like a plane, like I'm describing it bad. It's like a giant kite that you're on.
Yeah. Yeah, you're like hanging and you have like a parachute over you and you're strapped to a boat and the boat's pulling you around and then you
Oh,
land.
that's parasailing.
Whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, paragliding,
That's what I
parasailing.
thought you meant at first, but then I was like, wait, paragliding. I think that's the.
Yeah, whichever one they pull you behind the boat.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
parasailing.
yeah,
Yeah,
parasailing.
still, that's crazy.
Yeah, and I
Sorry,
mean
it's been
you.
a long day, y'all.
Yeah, I mean you can go on YouTube and watch videos of this because I looked it up afterwards and was just like, man, I wonder if anybody ever filmed this. Because it
Hmm.
was just it's something you don't see here. Like they wouldn't be allowed to do that, let alone if they did, they would have some sort of like safety equipment. But these like Thai guys would just like jump up on people's backs, hold on to the straps, and they would go up in the air with them, just hundreds of feet in the air. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was. it was crazy, and I just enjoyed sitting there watching it.
Yeah.
Um, so what's cool about Patong Beach is if you go out to the beach towards the ocean and then you make a right and you go all the way down the beach, like all the way past all the little restaurants and shacks and all the people, and you get all the way to the end of the beach, there's like a bunch of rocks at the end of the beach that kind of separate it. And I remember we wanted just like somewhere a little more quiet and stuff. So we went all the way down there and there was really nobody down there. And it's like right up from the beach is all this craziness happening, but like just right down at the end of the beach, it's like really like relaxed and like chill. So we were kind of down there hanging out by the rocks, and I remember looking up at the top of this like all these boulders that were like, they made like a little mountain, and it was probably about like 25 or 30 feet up. There was a little spirit house on the top, and a spirit house in Thailand is basically it's like a little open little house, little box that they like put in different places, and it almost looks like a little dollhouse kind of, and they'll put like candles and like pictures in there or like flowers. It's like a little shrine,
Oh, okay.
and you find these like in random places all over the country. And I guess they're like you could put them up in remembrance of somebody or like for the spirits of the land or whatever. And so I remember I climbed in flip flops, by the way, up this little like rock formation, 25 30 feet up because I wanted to get like a better look at this spirit house. And I got up to the top and I looked out at it, and it's like the backdrop of the ocean behind it. And so I did that so I could get some like really cool pictures, and those are also some of my favorite pictures I took from that trip was of
Yeah.
that spirit house with like the ocean in the background and just the like beautiful blue water and everything.
I
So
don't think I've seen those pictures.
yeah, yeah, I could show them to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, so um also on the island is the Big Buddha, which is a giant Buddha statue. Like all the Big Buddha because it's like the size of a building, and so you have to go up into the like into the like on the mountain to see it. And so we went up and did that. That was really cool. And then also up there in that area near the Big Buddha was a like a monastery, and you can kind of go up these stairs, these like stone stairs, and you go up and you go into this like monastery or temple, and there's a monk in there, and he was in there like blessing all the travelers that were coming in and like spraying water on them. And you'd walk up to him essentially, and you'd like kneel down in front of him, and he would like bless you, and then he'd give you a little bracelet to wear. And so I didn't want to do it just for like personal reasons or whatever, but Lindsay was all about it, and so she like went up and like did the whole thing. She like kneeled down. She got in line because there was like a line of people, and then she got up to him and kneeled down, and he did the whole ceremony thing, and then he gave her her little bracelet, and she wore that bracelet for like years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like I like for a long time after that, she had that bracelet, and she never took it off. I think it finally probably broke or something, I would assume,
Yeah.
but
Wow, what a cool like experience.
yeah. But what's really funny about that, like the funny part of that story is like, it was like this like super like, like spiritual like experience, and you're like getting blessed by a monk, and it's like, super like, you know, peaceful and like spiritual. And it's like Lindsay came down the stairs, and like the first thing she said to me was like, "Oh my god, you see that? That was fucking awesome."
Yeah.
So yeah, so yeah, a few days into us being in Patong, we just kind of walked around and hung out and checked out, the town and stuff. But the main thing that we went to Phuket for, and that I guess really we went to Thailand for, despite all these other cool experiences, was we went to go and swim with elephants. And so up in the mountains is they have a number of them over there, but the elephant sanctuary that we went to was like up kind of in the hills, and so you get a ride up, And yeah, that was really probably one of the most like incredible experiences of my life, was getting to hang out, swim with elephants. You get to like take like a mud bath with them, you get to feed them, you get to take care of them.
How long did you spend there?
Um it was a full,
Like a full day?
yeah.
That's really cool.
And they fed us there, and the food there was like oddly enough, like the food at the elephant sanctuary that we had was like the best food we had the whole time we were at least in Phuket.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the food was amazing. And they just had like these little Thai ladies like making food for everybody. And but yeah, as far as like elephant tourism like that goes, at least in Thailand, it's like there's two different types of places. There's like the ethical places and the unethical places. And the ethical places, well, the unethical places are like the places you see where people go and like they ride the elephants
Mhm.
and they get like, their social media pictures with them like riding the elephants, or like the elephants perform circus tricks, or like, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's kind of like degrading to them and stuff. A lot of those places are considered unethical, and a lot of them like abuse abuse the elephants and stuff. So the place we stayed at, like, they don't do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You don't ride the elephants, they don't do tricks for you. Like, they're just being themselves, and you just are kind of there.
Yeah.
And a lot of the ethical elephant sanctuaries, like the one that we were at, they'll actually like try to rescue elephants and try to pay off the places that are abusive towards them and try to get them like for themselves. And
Yeah.
so, yeah. But what was really cool is while we were there, they had a baby elephant there, and the baby elephant was like, I mean, it's a baby, but it was still like 300 pounds, because they're so
Yeah.
big.
Yeah.
And the larger elephants were kind of used to people, I guess, and so they're pretty timid, and they kind of know like where to step and like where to walk, and they don't like, they're pretty careful, I guess. But like the baby elephant like had no regard for anybody, and this thing would just plow into people. It was like he was like a little ball of energy, and you
Like
had
the
to,
elephant in the china shop.
yeah, exactly. And it's funny because like you think like, oh, I need to like watch out for like the big ones, but like no, it was like the little one. They told everybody like watch out for the baby because he doesn't know his own. They don't know how big they are.
Yeah.
And so he would just run into people and step on people and like lay on people. And but he was super cute. And there was another elephant there that was pregnant at the time when we were there, and they told us, you're allowed to interact with her, but like be careful, like be a little more cautious around her. She's kind of temperamental because she's pregnant. Um, but the rest of the elephants,
Oh, yeah, blame the pregnant elephant.
yeah. But the rest of them were all really cool, and I mean, we got to swim with them and bathe them, and I mean, you've seen some of the pictures and
Yeah.
stuff, and you get to feed them and stuff, and
What'd you feed them?
no bananas mostly. They had little shacks there that like people stay in and stuff. And in one of these shacks, which is probably like the size of this room here, it's like a thatched hut shack. Inside of it, they literally had it was just for bananas, like bananas from the floor to the ceiling, like
Wow.
thousands and thousands of bananas. Because I mean, elephants you can imagine eat a lot every day,
Yeah.
and so yeah, they had an entire essentially building that just was full of bananas, and so it was just it was incredible, man. Like it
That's so
was,
cool.
yeah.
Did you bond with like a specific elephant or you hung out with like kind of all of them?
Not really. Well, I kind of hung out with all of them, and you'd kind of like hang out with one and kind of swim with it, and you'd like bathe them and stuff. Excuse me. And then you'd kind of move on to a different one, and each like group of people kind of had their own elephant, and then you'd kind of move to a different one, and it wasn't like, I don't know. I think a lot of things like that, like that you go and do certain like excursions or whatever, are very like controlled. But this was very like they didn't. I mean, they essentially said like just watch out, so they don't step on you or like lay on you, but like essentially they just let us kind of go and just kind of hang out with them and do whatever.
Wow.
I mean, obviously you weren't allowed to like ride them or anything, but like, they kind of just, it was very like relaxed in that way.
Yeah. And it feels more like an, I don't know, for lack of a better word, like authentic experience.
Yeah,
Feels less like you're waiting in line and,
yeah,
you know, you're actually just kind of chilling, walking around, hanging out. That's really cool.
yeah. And in hindsight, looking back on it, it's kind of like how dangerous would that like how dangerous that is still just like because like the water you're in is like up to your like waist or your chest, and you're in there with these elephants, and it's like you can't see where they're stepping. Like they would just randomly like lay down. Like they could have easily hurt somebody, but in that moment when you're kind of like in a big pond hanging out with an elephant, and like it's you don't even think about it. Like the danger of it didn't even really cross my mind. And obviously, like I said, these elephants are pretty used to people, but they're animals and can be clumsy. So I mean, even if one steps on your foot, I mean, you can imagine a multi-ton animal stepping on your foot or something. Or
Yeah.
but yeah, you don't even think about it in that moment because you're just so amazed at what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah, so
So we liked Bangkok. It's one of your favorite cities.
hmm
And then, walking around the streets in Bangkok and Phuket, trying different foods. Would you say your favorite experience was the elephants?
yeah, I think so. I mean, it was one of those things that we went to for that experience mostly, but like the whole
Yeah,
trip was really
totally.
incredible. You know,
Yeah.
kind of in the same way that like our main thing we wanted to do in Peru was go to Machu Picchu, which was amazing. But so much of the trip, just walking around Cusco was like
Yeah.
so much fun.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna compare it to. It was like the elephant sanctuary in Thailand is, elephant sanctuary to Thailand is Machu Picchu to Peru.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, okay.
And like I was kind of talking about like ethical and non-ethical places, there are other places there that um and we didn't go to one of these places, but you'll see pictures online of like influencers taking pictures with like tigers and stuff.
Yeah.
Like hugging a tiger or sitting next to a tiger, and a lot of those places actually like they sedate those animals,
No,
to make
yeah.
them safer and stuff. And so they tell you like you don't want to do that either. Those are
Yeah.
considered like not good places to go.
Yeah, those poor animals.
Yeah. So,
Well, that was before Tiger King.
but yeah, so that was pretty much most of the big stuff that we did in Phuket. I remember the day that we were leaving our place to go back to the airport to fly back to Bangkok and then back home. We had a van that would pick people up from the hostel, and I remember sitting there and the van pulled up and Lindsay and I got into the van and they started driving us out of town. And I remember we were driving for a long time, and we were like out in the countryside of the island. There's like nothing around. And it was just like we were driving like kind of through the forest. And I didn't remember recognizing like us coming this way.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it was taking a long time. And I remember, you're in a different part of the world, and neither of us were like super well traveled at this time. And I remember Lindsay and I kind of looking at each other and being like, are we like okay? Are we being kidnapped? And what freaked us out even more was randomly this van with this guy driving us. It was just her and I in the van. And him, he pulled off to the side of the road, and we just kind of sat there, and he didn't speak any English. And another van pulled up, and he kind of like opened the door. He got out and opened the door for us and was kind of like, motioned for us to get in this other van. And so that's kind of where what like freaked us out. And I remember thinking like do we have to make a run for it? Because like we were like in the middle of nowhere, and I remember being like, should we run for these trees? Because you hear stories about I mean, it happens. People get kidnapped, or
Yeah.
you never know. And so I was just trying to be like cautious, and so. But I guess we were just kind of dumb travelers because we ended up getting in that other van anyway. And yeah, I don't and so we got in the other van, and the van took us to the airport and dropped us off. And looking back on it, like still to this day, and Lindsay and I have talked about this, like we still don't know what that was about. We don't know why we were transferred into another van. We don't know if the van was like having issues or
Was it still going like was it like the van took you from point A to point B and then you got in a different van and went from point B to point C? Like
yeah.
it took you, well, maybe that's just how they have it set up is like, I'm only gonna go this far.
Yeah, it was just a really random place to stop though. It
Yeah,
wasn't like it was like at a specific place where you would meet somebody. It was like
yeah.
in the middle of
Maybe it was
nowhere.
shift change.
Maybe. I don't know. But I mean, they didn't do that for us going to our place from the airport. So
Yeah.
it was weird to us. And like I said, to this day, we still don't really know what that was about. But, obviously we didn't get kidnapped. So,
Well, obviously.
yeah. And so now comes the story.
Oh yeah. I think this is like one of my favorite stories of yours.
Yeah. So before we left the hostel to go back to the airport and fly home, Lindsay decided, and me, I
Yeah,
guess.
I was gonna say, don't even try
Yeah.
to blame like you didn't want the. But go ahead.
Yeah, she decided, and I decided that we were going to try to take some fruit home. Again, this was many years ago. Neither of us were super well traveled at this point, and we're like, "Yeah, let's take some fruit home." And so she had a check bag. This was a long trip, and so we got a couple pineapples and some of those little like they're like the mini bananas that they have over there, and they have like almost like a blue tint to them. They say they taste like ice cream. So we got some of those little mini bananas and a couple pineapples and a few other things, and we put them in the check bag. And so we get to the airport, we make it through security and all the things we have to do at the airport in Phuket. And so we fly back to Bangkok, and we get a connecting flight from Bangkok back to China, fly all the way to China, and go through that whole rigmarole again of going through Chinese security and all the like intense stuff that,
Customs and stuff.
yeah, all that stuff that you have to do.
Did you declare your fruit in Chinese customs?
No, no, we didn't. And so we made it through that. And again, this is a long journey. This is a long, like, full day, if not more, of traveling, like many, many hours going through airports, going through different countries. So we make it through China. We leave Beijing, and we fly into Newark this time. We had a flight into Newark, and then from Newark down to Atlanta. When we arrive at the airport in Newark, we get pulled aside
Like
by,
immediately?
yeah, like as we're going through immigration or whatever.
Okay.
Um, we get pulled to the side. Some guys walk up and ask if they can speak with us, and we're like, okay. We didn't really think anything of it, and it was like customs and TSA, and we get pulled into a room, and we're sitting there, and these people come in and they tell us that they found fruit in our luggage, and we're like, yeah, we just came back from Thailand, like we were trying to bring some fruit back. And what's really funny about it is they had like a giant book. Like, I don't know, maybe now it might be different. Like you would think it would be like on a computer or something, but they just literally had a giant book that they like slammed down on the desk, and were like going through it to see like what was allowed and what wasn't allowed.
Yeah.
And they determined that we weren't allowed to bring the fruit into the United States from Southeast Asia.
Any of it.
No, none of it. Um, you can't bring stuff like that. It's they have all kinds of like regulations against that. Like the USDA and the FDA. I mean, they're very strict about that kind of stuff. And so we were detained at the airport for this for a while, and we had a flight back to Atlanta. And the guy, the agent told us like straight up. He said, "You guys flew through China with this stuff," and we were like, "Yeah." And he's like, "You guys are so lucky that you didn't get caught in China because in like China doesn't mess around even less."
Hmm.
And he pretty much said like if we had gotten caught with this stuff in China, they could have and very well would have thrown us in jail.
Wow.
And at that time, I mean, there's stories you can go look up like Western travelers were getting detained in China, and they probably still do, for just any small reason, sometimes for no reason, and they get detained indefinitely. I mean, they will throw you in jail for no reason.
Yeah, and you don't have like a due process or.
No. And so yeah, any reason they can find to like, single you out, um, they'll do it. And so the fact that we flew through China, it wasn't like trying to bring it into the US because they're just like, well, we're just going to dispose of it or whatever. But coming, traveling through China with this stuff was like, he was like, you are very lucky you didn't get caught up in China.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so because of that, we almost missed our flight back to Atlanta. And I just remember like running through the airport, and Lindsay wasn't as fast as me. And I remember her being like, just go on without me, tell him to hold the plane. And I'm like, because I'm like sprinting and she's behind me, like, you know, and yeah, so
Save yourself.
yeah. And
That's
so
funny.
we ended up getting to our flight barely. I mean, we were literally like, I remember standing,
It's like the least you could do after detaining me is like give me a ride to my gate.
yeah, yeah. I remember going through whatever the lines we had to get in, and I remember Lindsay because she was a little more like, um, I don't know, whatever you would call it. She was a little more like assertive than me, I guess. And she's a woman, so she was just kind of like we'd like come up to people and she'd like tap on the shoulder and be like, "Excuse me, can we please like can we get in front of you? Like we're gonna miss our flight." And like people would be like, some people would be like, "Sure," and then other people wouldn't. But like we just kind of made our way like through the line so that we didn't miss our flight. And because we were detained for a while, like this process took a while, and so we were able to catch our flight and make it back to Atlanta barely, but yeah, so I tell people that I'm an international fruit smuggler.
Yeah, we got on the list.
Yeah, USDA and the FDA, and yeah, that's my criminal background right there.
Yeah, I like that story. It's hilarious.
Yeah,
But I mean, you see it other places. Like a lot of times when you land somewhere, you'll see signs like up, like, "Hey, don't bring this back. Like you can't do that." It's not even just food. It's like sometimes it's other stuff.
right.
Like in Costa Rica, they had a thing about seashells. They didn't want you taking seashells.
Yep. Hmm.
Which like food and stuff, I can understand. Just I don't know, like controlling like the species, which
Yeah,
I don't know. I can see it like if there's like an invasive species or something like that. I understand that, but I don't know that I understand like the food.
yeah. I mean, I guess if there's any sort of insects embedded in the fruit
That makes
that could
sense.
ruin crops, or yeah, I think they're just cautious about it, which I get. But like I said, at that time, we didn't really think anything of it.
Yeah.
And now, like nowadays, I wouldn't do something like that, but back then we just kind of did it, and
Well,
we got lucky. Yeah, for sure.
I was gonna say we didn't plan on. There's been times like we didn't plan on bringing anything back from Peru, but it was like cleaning out your rain jacket or something, found some coca leaves.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
Or I've come back from like Colorado and like, you know, while I'm in Colorado, go to like a dispensary, get like gummies or like a chocolate or something like that, but never intend to like travel, especially on a plane with it. But there was one time that it was like these little gummies, they kind of were, I don't know, they were in like almost like a warhead package, like they were just really small. I got back after like going through security, whatever, like flying all the way back from Denver and open up my makeup bag, and there's a freaking marijuana thing in there. And I was like, oh my gosh. And it's not even like discreet. It's like on the back, it clearly says like the warning label with the California and the pot
Mm-hmm.
leaf. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So it's,
I just yeah, it's funny because we were actually back from Peru for a while, and I put that rain jacket on, and I remember I forget where I was, but I like put my hands in the pockets of it, and I was like, "What is that?" And I pull out like crushed up coca leaves, and I was like, "Oh man." Which I've heard people say that like they've brought coca leaves back, but I don't think you're supposed to do that.
I don't think so either.
So, but yeah, so that's my story of my trip back in 2018 to Thailand as a young backpacker without a cell phone.
Well, thanks for telling me about your trip.
Yeah.
Seemed like quite the adventure. And I like um, that you guys didn't have a whole lot of plans. I feel like that's just a really great way to experience a place is like, you know, we hang out on the weekends at home and like we don't always have a plan, but we figure it out. So it's all, it's like being a local wherever you go.
hmm Yeah, I think that trip was one of the ones that we definitely lived by that ethos. I mean, aside from some of the things we did, we really just hung out, walked around, tried to find things to do, find good food. The night markets there were amazing. Like
Mm.
like you know me, I'm a sucker for a market. I talk about it all the time, but like Southeast Asia just has the best markets.
Yeah,
And
which is
yeah.
so funny you bring that up because we probably should have mentioned this at the beginning of the episode of like, last week we were talking about how you're a sucker for a market. Guess what we did over the weekend? All we went to was markets,
Yeah.
local in Colombia.
Yeah. We did. And even when we were in the mountains last weekend, we went to a market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for telling me about your trip. This was a nice, you know, different episode.
You getting to relax and me just rambling on and on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And asking questions. And, I'm really trying to like visualize what you're saying because, it's a place that I've never been.
hmm